right. So with tobacco brides, what we're trying to work out is why, like, what was in it for these women? Why would they have come? Like, I mean, like you're going across the ocean, early 1600s. What's in it for them? Many of these women were probably they weren't the poorest of the poor, because if they were the poorest of the poor, they would have come as indentured servants. Even though, again, most indentured servants are male, 4 out of 5 are men, but some of them are women. So if they were the poorest of the poor, they would have come as indentured servants. They're probably, in terms of their status, they're probably like maybe lower middle class, and they've lost male protectors. They don't have uh, a brother. Their fathers died, right? They don't have a brother, so they don't have somebody who can arrange good marriage for them, or they don't have the means for a good marriage. And again, think of the document that you have in the module. Each person who marries one of these tobacco brides pays 120 pounds of the best leaf tobacco. Technically, they're not purchasing the woman, technically, maybe kind of splitting hairs here. Technically, they're paying for her passage. But they had to pay 120 pounds of the best leaf tobacco for her passage. Well, she just increased her social status. She just married a landowner, right? So that's one incentive. Oh, likewise, another incentive, back up a little bit, another incentive is sometimes the Virginia Company actually offered the women, like, before they even got on the ship, like, here's like a dowry, here's some fine clothes. So there was even incentives before they even got on the ship. And then when they got to Virginia, they've got marriage choice, right? If they had been of a higher status and their marriage had been arranged, they probably really wouldn't have had marriage choice over in England. I mean, they might have had choice among like several people. It wouldn't be completely arranged marriage, but they wouldn't have a whole lot of marriage choice. They can't just marry whoever they want. But now, like, they get to Virginia, they get to choose who they marry. So they have marriage choice. The person who marries them has to pay 120 pounds of the best leaf tobacco to pay for their passage, so they just increase their social status. And life is pretty tenuous in Virginia in the first 50 or so years. You get about a 40% chance of dying in the first 6 months when you show up in Virginia. And so half the people who come here as indentured servants, half of them don't survive their term. That term is 4 to 7 years. Half of them don't survive that. So now both parties in this story could die. The tobacco bride or the husband, they could both die. But let's just say he dies. Now most of the men who come here, they come here as single men. And so when they have to sit down to write their will, they don't have family members. They don't have brothers or cousins to leave their property to. So if they've gotten married, they've listed their wife as the executor of their estate. That's not going to happen in England, right? Executor means she's in charge. So he dies, she gets the land. Now, there's so few women for, again, like the first 50 years, that she's going to get probably married real quickly. And whatever land she has, right, because of the laws of covetture, whatever land she has is going to transfer to her husband. But, there are instances where she marries a second time and then he dies. And sometimes a third time, right? Now, in this scenario, she could die too, because it's a really high death rate. But there are instances where women get married 2, sometimes 3 times, and then they just don't get remarried because now they've amassed like huge, huge plots of land. Now, again, this is only happening like in the first 50 years of Virginia, when we have this huge sexual imbalance. These possibilities are going to go away by the time we get to the end of the 1600s. But for about the first 50 years, there's this possibility. And then another thing is many of these women have fewer children. They have maybe 3 to 4 kids instead of 6 to 8 kids. The average is about 8 kids in the colonial period. And so that is going to be a benefit to have 3 to 4 kids. And the reason they're having fewer children is because they're either marrying later or the spouse is dying. But that's a huge advantage because the number one way of dying for women one out of 5 of them in the colonial period is childbirth. So if they're having 3 to 4 kids instead of 6 to 8, that's going to be an advantage for them. So now, again, many of these tobacco brides are going to be lost to history. They probably died. But perhaps for some of them, there's these possibilities. They are getting some, maybe financial wealth, just to even get on the boat. They're going to get marriage choice when they get here. They are going to increase their social status if they marry, because they're going to marry a landowner. And then if he dies, they might become landowners. And then they're going to have fewer children. Again, all of this is predicated on them surviving, but these possibilities. So if you have any questions, you can leave those in the discussion board with the module. Take care.